welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 158 with Nathan Haugaard, DP of Good Bad Things. Enjoy.
No, it's good to start this, but now I know Kenny McMillan,
writer guy.
Yeah, journalist.
I am actually a journalist.
Yes, proper journalist.
Yeah. Dude, when I first got that job, I was so scared because I went to film school. I didn't study journalism or anything. So I took it very seriously, and I was emailing AP and stuff. What do I do? And then after 5 years of that, I realized that all of the people that I was talking to, all these camera manufacturers or even artists or whoever, don't really like talking to classically trained journalists because it's incredibly dry and it feels like a job. So I'll get put on, going to NAB or whatever. And after a few years of that, I've noticed that they're very much thank God it's you. It feels like a break, because they don't have to be so corporate about it. Because my interview style has always been, the interview style on this podcast is the same way I treat, quote unquote journalism, which is to take a much more, human forward approach. You're not talking to a company, you're talking to a person who has opinions and feelings, who, it's up to them to tell me. Their line is not my line. I'll ask whatever I want. It's up to them to give me the information in a way that they want to, or that the company makes them. It's way harder for me to ask ahead of time. What are you allowed to talk about? I'd rather just cut out that question if necessary.
Sure. Do you do that often then? Do you find yourself, because it's so conversational, having to chop stuff out?
No, only because I've had practice. But at first, there was a lot more.
How much do you hate working for your company? Tell me.
Well, and I find a lot Black Magic is really whenever I talk to those people, they're very free about information. I'm really good friends with the Canon people, but because Canon Japan is Japan, they're way more tight-lipped. And the American team, I've seen be frustrated by it, just being hamstrung. One of the craziest things, I think I can say this, the Hubble telescope is a Canon lens.
I didn't know that.
No one does. They don't advertise it. And I asked someone on the American team years ago, why not? And they were Japan is not interested in making that an advertising note.
That's so cool. How do you feel about this explosion of lens manufacturing? It's a very recent. This is a 5-year problem, I think, right?
Yeah.
I think
the Chinese lenses.
Well, just everything. I think it's a problem.
Why so?
I think it's too many choices. I think it's too much conversation about. It's just I don't know. My favorite part of the process is figuring out where to put the thing. Then spend less time, because everyone loves talking about gear, and now there's just more gear. So now there's just a lot more conversation about gear, but it's but what problem are we solving? Let's just, and it's, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that just from a consumer perspective, having a lot of options is cool. I think most of the lenses that are coming out now are so much the same that, to your point about these conversations happening, is people are nitpicking over stuff that really doesn't matter. And especially younger people or people new to the art form are at a disadvantage because they think, they're on Reddit, they're on YouTube, whatever, and they think that these conversations are necessary. What's the difference between, a Blazar anamorphic and a Siri anamorphic? And it's if you look at them, they're borderline identical potential. I'm just pick two names, but I feel you'll probably appreciate this. It was a lot easier when the information was less valuable and the thing was just, or not less valuable, less prevalent. And the thing was just to go test.
Right.
And come up with your own little thingy.
Yep.
Josh Homme is one of my favorite musicians, the guy from Queens of the Stone Age. And he's real tight-lipped about his equipment. And he explained it. Everyone, whether it be music or whether it be film or whatever, everyone wants to use what their heroes use because it gives you, I think it gives you like a feeling of lineage. You're part of a family tree of creators that you love. Yep. But you want to be sure, like, oh, my hero uses this, so I can be sure that it's good. But that's also a fallacy because, like, what if you know more than them and you just didn't know? They're just more successful than you. But Josh Homme mentioned, like, he doesn't tell anyone what he uses because he spent a lot of time trying to make his own personal sound. Like, you don't need him doing, Gibson with a Fender amp, chocolate and peanut butter. That's great. People want something else. But if you spend a bunch of time trying to figure out what he uses,
yeah,
and only being able to find things that are close or whatever, in that experience, in that journey, you will find your own thing and you won't necessarily need to copy him. And I think that's true with most art. Like when people talk about, stealing is great. It's like, yeah, but only in service of trying to find your thing. If you're trying to copy someone, that you self-limit yourself and you don't find a voice. But at first you don't have a voice. So it's like important to try to find those things. But yeah,
I spent too much time early on in my career trying to emulate a look and not enough time emotionally reacting to like what's in front of me. And it's just like, I wish I could do over some of those things. And that's the conversation with the gear too, is it's just like, there's too much of a concern over just all the little technical bits and bobs. And like on this movie that's coming out now, Good Bad Things, I mean, we just shot on photography lenses because it's like, what's the saying? It's like the best camera is the one you have.
Yep.
It's like you could walk that out. The best anamorphic lens is the one that you've got access to. It's like if you want an anamorphic look, like start there. What do you have access to? And then if you've got the means and the resources, like keep walking it out. And you get to keep getting more and more specific about like, well, I need this close focus and I want that color flare and I want this kind of edge distortion. And like, and you keep going down that rabbit hole. But it's amazing what you can do, especially like in the DI now, like take a photography lens and then do the MTF transform, which is like a word that I don't really even know. Do you know what MTF stands for? Modular
something transmission. No, modular transmission function.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Which I didn't fully appreciate until the grade for this film. But it's like, let's slowly detune this lens, this photography lens, so it's no longer edge to edge sharp, and then just create character, which is like, great. Like that's what that technology is for. And I just it just wasn't an option for this film to be like, what lenses do I play with? And it's just like, just tell the story.
Yeah.
And like, cool, now let's give it some character. What's the right character to give it? Let's play with it.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I appreciate about, I got to interview Eric Messersmith a few times, and his work with Fincher very much embodies that idea of like get it as clean as possible, and then be very precise with what you want that look to look like. Because I think, especially 5-10 years ago, everyone was just like, when the grade wasn't accessible, when Resolve wasn't like so prevalent and so powerful for the average person, everyone was just like, fuck it, K35s, give me something, because they just weren't
that's also a thing, right? Like but I love what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I love the Fincher Messerschmitt. Sorry. Yeah. It blows when you watch their on-off, like their VFX, like, and you're just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I believe that's Art Temple that does most of their VFX work. They're incredible.
Yeah, it's creme de la creme.
Yeah. One trick I've actually started doing in Resolve, because over the pandemic, I had to become a freelance colorist. And I've gotten pretty good at that now. And it's nice because I don't have to leave the house. But one trick I just figured out in Resolve is if you take there's a depth map effect, and if you map the depth map mask into the blue triangle on the node so that it takes the mask from that, and you put the tilt shift effect on that and then slam the anamorphism to the left, it'll make the background anamorphic blurry, that those straight lines, and it eats the shit out of my computer. But you can, I'll shoot on those Sigma lenses that are very neutral, very clean, sharp, and then do that like anamorphism blur, and then target the high frequency parts of the image and detune that, but not the whole image, right? So like, when film is sharp, but not in the high freak, like hair, that kind of gets a little softer, and just being able to tune all that and make it look like exactly the way you want is way better than buying like dehanter is great, but like, having something do it for you.
Right. Dude, now I'm going to steal that. That's awesome.
I'll send you my power grade for it.
That's precisely it. And spending more time having conversations about why on set.
Yeah.
Why is the most important word. And I feel like people shouldn't be afraid to ask. But it's like, like I want this camera. Why? Oh, because like I just saw this commercial for it and because so-and-so used it. And it's like going back to like the musician thing. So you buy a guitar because that guitar wrote the hit song. It's like the guitar didn't write the song. It's like just a tool.
Yeah.
It's like, how are we using this thing? I love that conversation. That's the best.
Well, and I feel like we as DPs can get a little ahead of our skis in regards to like how important our job is. Mm-hmm. Oh, if I don't get this lens, it's not going to be my vision. And it's like, the audience doesn't care. Like, I really want you to do what makes you happy and what serves the story. But like, I think we get a little too granular about choices that don't, I need this light instead of this light. It's like, does it look different on the subject? Probably not. Like, pick the thing that makes your workflow easier, not the thing that I need sky panels. Well, sky panels aren't that great, honestly. New lights have come out that are much better than sky panels.
Yeah. Yeah. Way cheaper, lighter.
Yeah. I read that you kind of, and I feel like that people our age this happened to all of us, but like you kind of really got a jump start when the 5D came out. Because obviously before that it was DVX or film. Which
I also shot. The DVX was great. I remember like I worked a job in high school. So high school, it's like end of high school coming into freshman year of college. I worked a gig for a guy because he wouldn't pay me, but he would give me unfettered access to his DVX. That was like, that camera ruled.
Yeah. I have an XL2 still.
Yes. How excited are you for 28 years later?
Okay. So I'm not going to lie. I was supposed to interview Anthony Dodd Mantle an hour before you.
Hey.
And then he pulled out last second. And I was literally I think I'm interviewing him next week. But I was going to pull out the XL2 and be like, dude, you had an effect on my career.
Yeah. It still holds up. It's incredible.
Yeah.
The power of a light meter.
Dude, are you a light meter guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But just as like a starting point, it's like brass tacks. What's going on? And especially now, if I've got like a studio camera, like if it's a big build, and I can walk through the space, the combination of using like the Cadrage iPhone app and a light meter, it's like we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's some shape. And then the light meter is most important for me when I get really anal about coverage. And a really quick case in point is, I did this science fiction film in Romania over Christmas, and I had to shoot this big wide, and like I can't shape the actors, obviously. It's like this huge wide, they're on this train platform. I love big wides because I think, if you're making a small film, that's great, make a small film, but give it scope whenever possible and make it feel bigger than it is. So you get this, like, every little bit of production value I have is in this big frame. And I just metered it's totally overcast, but what's the sky to like the shadow side of their chin? Like what's the ratio of like forehead to chin? And then when I got in close, then I was able to like booklight at 18K and bring in like a 20 by solid. and I just took this ratio and I just went like that with it, which is how I like, no top light, like just like a side, very classical look.
Mm.
I was able to do that, but walk it in to be the same ratio, and it doesn't feel lit. Like I would totally I like for my stuff to feel naturalistic. Like I don't want it to feel lit, but there's like a effing 18K right there. But it was just, so that's when the light meter is like, because I don't work with the DIT, so like I've got nobody studying false color while I'm lighting. I like to have a very, very small crew. So it's like,
yeah,
the old school guys could do it. Why can't we?
Well, and I find that I love the color meter. I was really happy when I was able to get the spot meter, especially now that like digital cameras all want a different middle gray position. And just knowing what that is and being able to spot meter like skin and just being like, all right, I got to put that where the camera wants it and then shape the light around that pivot point. But the color meter too, being able to match all the lights truly, because you type 5600 into the back of a light, that's not what comes out the front, and I'll write in Sharpie on the back of all of my fixtures what like 5600 equals, like 5400 or like, sometimes it's like 5000 or whatever. And I'll just write those on the back so I know how to get the color that I want out of the front if I'm not using like XY coordinates or whatever.
That's brilliant. And you just like go a step further, and then you can like, yeah, and you're gonna, if I ask for 56, then it's 54 minus 2 points green.
Yeah, exactly.
That's brilliant. I love that. Yeah. Do you do that during test, or is that sort of like during the first week of shooting, you're like figuring out this is what's on the truck and this is how I solve it?
No, I'm a dork, and I like went to Film Tools and like metered all the lights there, or like the ones that I own. I'll just do it in my, I'll black out a room and just get the raw data out of it. And then the big one obviously is like if you got to supplement like window light, just getting the XY coordinates on that and typing them into the back of the light, it just looks exact. You're talking about naturalism, like it's because obviously light coming through the window is bouncing off buildings, it's bouncing off. That's why they make like the bluff bounce, right? Where it's got like the blue section and the green section up to like you can do that with XY coordinates on a full RGB light.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then just like what's the quality of dust? There's nothing more beautiful than a dusty old single pane glass window.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like that half soft frost diffusion. You put like a Fresnel outside, and then it's just like love it.
Yeah. I also find with the light meter that I've heard people like Deacons talk about they used to be able to hide behind the eyepiece and like think for a while, and no one knew what the image was going to look like because you were the only one. I find with the light meter, if I don't set up the camera first and I go and set all the lights first and then turn on the camera and it's done, like that gives everyone, they're like, oh my God, look, he I don't know what he was doing over there, but now it looks good on the monitor. It's like, that's how you keep your mystique,
Yeah. It's like all those little things that require some love and some time. So it's like, I love operating wheels. That's like one of the last sort of like thresholds of like, oh, he does this for a living.
Yeah.
Light meter, shooting on film and with wheels. It's like, ooh, you're one of the real ones.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I was looking through your Instagram, and you, the stuff you've posted on there is like gorgeous. And I was wondering, do you have kind of a methodology when it comes to the way that you light? Because I'm not saying all the images are the same, but there does seem to be a sort of signature there.
So when I first moved to LA, I was really fortunate to hang out with Aaron Platt. He's now a director, cinematographer. Are you familiar with his work at all?
I don't believe so.
Super cool dude. Incredibly talented. He shot some really cool indie films, but now he's like, I think he created the Target look, like that's really beautiful high key. It's like somehow it's high key, but it's style. It's got style. It's like oozing style. Like he's just a master. So we did this amazing music video for the Glitterati, and I was helping out with the art department, but I was studying lighting. And I'm just blown away. I go like, how do you light? And he goes, what do you want to see? Point a light at it. Like, oh, all right. And I don't think it's like reductive, if that's the right word. So I kind of start there. I mean, like that's the essence of every scene. So if a director says, like, again, like on this film in Romania, it's all about not seeing a character. So then that means we got to see someone else. And so I just like, the protagonist walks into the room and he's being interviewed by someone who's kind of hiding in the shadows, and it all sort of works out. Then you just put like one 18K. I think the 18 was too bright. I think it's like a 6K out the window. And he's sort of being blinded by this guy. And so his coverage looks very, very bright. But it's like, right, we see him kind of being intimidated. And then you create the opportunity for this other guy to kind of like lean into the light. And you got that passive bounce ready to kind of like splash some of that back onto him. But it's just like, like I want to see him. I don't want to see him. When I want to see him, he'll reveal himself. So you work with the actors that he moves into it. But it's like, if you can do it with single source, if you can create a perspective to a scene, it's like, what are you trying to say? Like, what do you want to see here? I love backlight. It's like, always be backlighting. It's like, why does this scene suck? It's like, because there's no backlight. So if I walk into any room and you give me one light, I'm going to put it up as a backlight first and foremost. And then I'll even we'll overexpose so that like everything, and then you get this big, beautiful, just natural, soft, rappy bounce, or you dial it down and then you just take away with negative or whatnot. But like, always be backlighting, and what do you want to see? And if you kind of hone in with that, then you really guide the eye. And it's, is the director going to edit this thing where it's like Mad Max style, where it's center punch every frame so that you know that your eye is always going to be there? Or are we exploring extremes with anamorphic? But like, how can you kind of be bold and just be like, well, what do I want to see? Is it like him? And then it's sort of like, how can everything go to guide that? And I really like a density to the image, which I think is like, there needs to be dark and there needs to be light. And I think it's also like a measurement thing, or oh my goodness, was it like Roger talking to Labatique and was teasing him like I forgot which movie it was, but it's like, I saw it and he still put like a light in the background. It's like, there should be no light in this shot, but it's like, because you have to have dark, you must have light. And that's that perspective. And so, yeah. I
was going to say, I find the same with color. Like when people are like, oh, I want this to be a deep, tungsten wash. I want everything to be orangey. It's like, okay, well then you do need to put a white light somewhere in there, or else everyone will go colorblind. It'll just look black and white very quickly, to your brain.
My gaffer, the first gaffer that I worked with consistently, Matthew Waltz, he's now the lightsabers fixture tech for Star Wars, which is such a cool job. He got to choose, I think, Ahsoka's color. Like, he dialed it in. He's a genius.
Like the specific tone of white.
Yes, he chose it. He got to. They were like, we need like a new color, and like he chose it. So he's a genius, and he would fight me because, again, like in my early days, I loved that. I was like, no, it's all orange, and he's like, skin tones.
Yeah,
skin tones. I'm like, well, but yeah, you lose perspective.
I mean, I was just looking. My shot right now, it's like gray, tan, white, black. Like this looks like shit. The light direction's fine, but the color is all. Although I do have the tungsten light back there, but
you've got good texture.
Yeah, well,
So
it's C100.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, that's always the advice I kind of give to like new students or whatever. It's like contrast. Think of the phrase contrast and put it anywhere, whether it be literal contrast, like light, dark, whether it be color contrast, whether it be space, no space, like everything should have some form of contrast in it.
That's well said. Yeah.
Yeah. That is actually something when you were talking about like you've done a lot of different gigs.
Yeah.
And it's actually
trying to drive it back to the one true love, which is like the sci-fi I just did. I want to do feature films, but it's surviving in the industry is a thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like you say no to the opportunity. You're like, but I might learn something really cool and I might meet somebody really cool. But I'm always trying to drive it back to like, feature films. Like that's what I was born. I was put on this earth to do that thing.
Right.
And I firmly believe that.
Yeah, I mean, because that I'm personally in the same boat. I'm doing a lot of corporate interviews right now. It's like I was the second unit DP on one feature, and I was like, close. But people offer you, like AC jobs, camera. I mean, camera operating's great. But I was wondering from your perspective, like, how has being, an AC at, doing early like 3D work on like Alita and shit, ACing, how does being kind of a multifaceted sort of Swiss Army knife of an individual help and hurt you? Because I think I got the same advice you got, which was like, you need to pick one thing or else no one will take you seriously. But like you said, you still need to work.
Yeah, I mean, so Alita was recently. Well, I was a camera operator for the motion capture for pickups for motion capture on Alita, and then we did that while we were doing Avatar.
Mm.
So I was a camera operator for Avatar 2 and 3, and then also for Alita. I've never been a proper camera assistant.
Mm.
So I started pulling focus. Well, I mean, like on the DVX and whatnot. I forgot how big was that chip? Was that like a
1/3?
1/3? So then it was like the 5D, and then now we're shooting a 16:9 crop of VistaVision, essentially. And it's like, whoa. And so I did that for years.
Mm.
So I just learned to pull focus that way. And then when I had the opportunity to operate reality TV, then I went back to like the F900, which was 1/3 or 2/3 inch.
I'm gonna say 2/3. Maybe it was a 1 inch.
Yeah. So it was small. So then I was like, well, this is like easy, So then I go back to that. So as far as pulling focus goes, like I just got very intuitive just doing it for myself, but I've never been a proper camera assistant. So I think the thing that hurt me was maybe not coming up through the ranks, and that maybe if I had come up through the ranks and been a camera assistant as just like a stepping stone. But then I meet people who have done that, and it's like, no matter what, there's going to be like a yin and a yang to every choice we make in the industry. So I don't regret anything. I just knew that I wanted to shoot because I started shooting when I was 10.
Right.
Writing and directing and editing my own movies and whatnot. So then I moved to LA, and I was like, well, I just want to keep doing that. Like, I don't want to go work at Panavision. Like, I want to get a job, any job that will keep the lights on. And then on the weekends, I'm going to go and make short films with my friends. And so I just kept doing that. And then people knew me as like, well, you're at the day job thing was like, well, we need like a DP for this like small thing that doesn't pay. And they're like, well, Nathan, he's DP. He shoots all the time. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I do shoot like all the time. And then gradually I was able to like just only get paid to shoot. But doing all the different little things is like, then I make a movie like Good Bad Things where I find out what's our budget. It's like, oh, we don't have one. Great. I'll just do it. And so then it was about creating the right circumstance for me to not lose my mind trying to do every job. So it's like, let's just take more time. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, that was the conversation with the director in Good Bad Things, Shane Stanger. It's like, if you just give me the time, like, yeah, like I can do, like, I'll gaff it, I'll key grip it. Let's just have conversations and like have fun doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's the other side of it. But yeah, that's the only thing, like in the darkest hours of this career, I go like, man, maybe if I would have like, there's like that bureaucratic camera game, I guess, that you could play where it's like you work at Panavision and then you become a loader, and then you become a second, and then you become a first, and then you become a camera operator. And then maybe by the time you're 70, you'll be a DP. But it's like, but every time you have to break through that permission structure.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I don't really see. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I did kind of the same thing you did, where I just wanted to start. I when I was younger, I was like 27, very impatient, and I had what at this point in my life I can consider undue confidence coupled with well-meaning. I knew roughly what I was doing, but I didn't. And so, yeah, I did the same thing. I was like, I'd rather be making stuff than doing something I hate. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got into filmmaking in general is like, if I get a job as a fucking accountant, I'm going to blow my brains out. And maybe that would create a more comfortable lifestyle for me. But like, I am stubborn and was just like, you know what, I'm going to do the thing I love. And then, you know, worst case scenario, I can go back to bartending or whatever. But like, I for me personally, like creative fulfillment superseded having a nice new car or, you know, watches or what, you know.
Yeah, I was told. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but I don't. I look back on mistakes often and feel bad about it because it's you know, I was my own worst enemy in many ways, but I didn't know it at the time. So how was I supposed to, you know, I wasn't listening to anyone. And if I got so much great advice and I ignored it because I was like, well, you know, I got to meet with the, I said this in a different podcast, I think, but I got to meet with like the president of ABC when I was working there.
Yeah.
And he was trying to help me out and I was trying to be cool. So I'm asking him about, you know, his work as like owning a winery and shit. And he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, probably DP anyway. What do you, and like, you know, just didn't, I almost got to work in the art department of Criminal Minds on accident. And I did for like a few weeks before I had to go back to working at ABC. And stuff like that, where they were like, hey, we'll keep you on. And I was like, no, I'm a DP. You know, it's like maybe it would have been smarter to hang out and just do that for a while, you know, and build connections in there and then whatever.
No, you're killing it.
Oh,
Did all the right decisions and it's led you to this and life is good.
yeah.
Yeah, it can drive me nuts thinking about those conversations. Because yeah, I mean, it's just like I had an opportunity. I had a really famous reality TV director go like, you can be my guy. Just come in, I'm like, I want to go do movies.
Right.
You know, and I knew it was like, he's so good. He'll never go do movies. He's too good at this. He's the best. He's the best at this. Like, this is his calling. And I'm going like, it's not my calling.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, maybe financially irresponsible to turn down those opportunities, but also it's like, we can't deny the fire, you know, it's like,
Well,
yeah.
I was gonna say for me the like even working in that art department is when I started, and I think I read that you kind of had a similar thing. It was like I just wanted to make movies. I didn't choose DP off rip. I don't think I knew. I didn't necessarily want to direct, but I just wanted to be in the mix. And I think when I was 20, when that gig came around, that would have put me in the mix, and then I probably would have had a better eye on options. You know, and I would have been working on actual television versus, you know, going back and making the shitty music videos and ads for local companies and whatever, which are cool and educational in their own right. But, you know, when you're close and then you're not close, it's more drastic of a contrast.
Yeah, there's something to be said for just kind of being like around it. That it's like, yeah, I'm working in the art department, but I'm also observing, you know, like how it's really done. That was the coolest thing about like the early 3D jobs that I had. That was the first time where I was like on a real set. So I did reality TV. Then I found myself on these like the biggest movies in the world being made. And then I went back to reality TV.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll get back there.
Yeah. Was that Garrett Warren who kind of like got you onto those bigger, you know, the avatars and all that?
Garrett got me onto Avatar, but initially it was Vince Toto, who was a very talented cinematographer. He did a lot of motion control VFX work, like Air Force One and some other cool movies. And he was the stereographer for that the Judge Dredd 3D movie.
That was also Anthony Dodd Mantle.
Yes,
He did Dredd.
Dredd 3D in South Africa and Bishop. So Vince was a mentor of mine early on, and he got me this interview over at Cameron Pace, and I had no idea what I was interviewing for. I was so young, dude. I showed up in a suit with a tie, to a camera house, and it was like I had my resume in a manila envelope, which had nothing on it. And it was like a bit of a madhouse. I walked in and they were like, "Are you the new guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." And they just put me to work on Transformers 3. And it was just,
Natural.
you just got right into it. And I did that for a couple years, just being a 3D camera tech. So like all these experienced camera assistants are coming in, but we're working with the gear all day, every day. So we knew it really well. So then we had the opportunity to go to set and to sort of be camera assistants, but for specifically for that stereo technology. And so that opportunity. But then again, like I wanted to shoot. And as we taught all the camera assistants how to use it, then like, cool, the kids can stay at home.
Right.
So then all the best camera assistants in the world were like, we got this. And I was like, I don't want to clean toilets at the camera shop. I want to go shoot. And so I was like, okay, well, I can either like wait for maybe another opportunity to be a camera assistant, or I can go and be a camera operator on The Real Housewives of Orange County.
Right.
And so then I went back and did that. So it was like 5 days a week, shoot reality TV. And then on the weekends, it's like, let's make an action movie, on the 5D.
Yeah.
That's kind of how. And then Avatar, I met Garrett in late 2014 on another science fiction project called Orphans of the Void. And that was
Great title.
Great title, right? Yeah, he walked up to me. He saw me light for the first half of the day. He came up to me at lunch. He handed me his phone. He goes like, "I like what you do. Put your phone on my number, or put your number on my phone." And then I shot for him for 10 years. He brought me into Avatar, and I did Mortal Kombat with him and a bunch of cool projects. Yeah, Garrett's a visionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I know you didn't go to a traditional film school, but I was wondering if you could elucidate me on the film school of James Cameron.
That is a great question, because that's every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. I don't judge successful celebrities. I've been privileged to work for a number of them.
Mm.
And the people that the public loves to talk shit on, there's always some story, but like, I don't know, say what you want, but like DP Ellen DeGeneres. It's like, I had a great time.
Mm.
And, it's like, it's interesting. You think about you or I devoting our life to a craft, and then suddenly finding ourselves as the head of like a Fortune 500 company. That's what it's like for these people.
Right.
They show up, and there are thousands of people whose jobs depend on them. They didn't sign up for that part of it. So they're just like trying to stay in the creative pocket that got them there. And so with James Cameron, or Jim, as he prefers to be called, there's just like, it's worked for me my whole life, and this is how it is. And it's he knows your job better than you most of the time. He needs to vet everything. He wants to talk through every problem. But it's like little things. Like I remember a guy coming out with an arrow like here, and he was like, and this is motion capture, so that arrow is going to be replaced.
Right.
But it's like, no, we commit to everything. It's like, we're not shooting it like it's a CG. It's like, this is real. This is all real now. We're shooting the real movie now, and then we'll put this facade over it later. So that arrow needs to be like 1 inch higher. And I go, what? Like, because now I have to send that guy back to wardrobe, and then that arrow has to be re-zinted, and then he needs to be recalibrated to come back out into space. So moving the arrow isn't as simple as just like, he'll be back in 30 seconds. It's like probably 15 minutes for that guy to come back, and we're going to wait to shoot until that happens. So I was like, why is that? He's like, well, that's a glancing blow. He's like, that they can pull that arrow out, but he's going to pierce the aorta if it's like 1 inch. I'm like, so like, anatomy too? And he's just like, yeah. And it's like, it's important, it's like, that kills it. He dead, alive.
Yes.
Dead, alive. And that's everything, he asked me to adjust a camera. I was in charge of all of the fixed perspective cameras on all the creatures. So early on in pre-production, he told Garrett, for the action unit, that he wanted it to look like these kids had GoPros attached to these sea creatures. He's like, we got to shoot. He's like, we're watching. And so like part of pre-production was like, we were watching every GoPro people are awesome montage clip and just like all that stuff. And how do we capture the underwater stuff? It's like GoPros. It's like, great. Where would they put the camera? How would they do it? So that was my job. And so we did one shot of the kids getting pulled underwater. And, you know, like I had headroom, but it must have been tight. And I showed it to Jim and he's like, you need to tilt up like 15 degrees. And I go, okay. So I go back over and, you know, like, I'm like, you know, like reef on it a little bit. And which is like, cause they're like, we built this tank in Manhattan Beach Studios. And so for a lot of the underwater stuff, they're stationary, but we pushed water against them to simulate the effect of them being pulled through the water. Right.
Sure.
So you've got like 10 plus knots of water pushing against. So it's not just like a, you know, like a quarter 20 on a GoPro. It's like, no, all of my GoPros had 3 points of contact with
speed rails.
But speed rail, and I couldn't fit speed rails with like 5/8 pipe. So everything is like 5/8 pipe with little dog collar couplings. So adjusting the camera is like a chore, you know. So like to go through all of that to kind of like, man. So I go back and he goes like 15 degrees. I'm like, yeah, 15 degrees. He goes, how'd you measure it?
Damn.
I go, he's like, how do you know it's 15 degrees then? I go, I don't. He goes, did I ask for 15 degrees? I'm like, you did. He's like, all right. And I think he walked away. And I was like, I just felt like a piece of shit. So the next day I went and bought a, what's it called?
Protractor.
Yeah, protractor. At Target. I went to the Target over in Manhattan Beach before call and like bought everything they had and like their science. And then the next time he asked, he's like, all right, this needs to be like however many degrees. And I went and did it and I measured it. And he goes, huh? And I pulled it out of my little AC pouch and I pulled it out. I was like, huh? And he's just like, yeah. So yeah, it was 3 years of that.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. The precision. I feel like people like him or Fincher or even in kind of a weird way, David Lynch, you know, who are demanding over certain things, kind of going back to your point of people giving the wrong people shit, is like they're not asking to be a dick. Sometimes they are, not those people, but sometimes people are. But usually you can tell when they don't know what they're asking for. But when someone knows what they're asking for, but you don't realize that they know, that can be a very educational moment.
Yeah, that can be a dangerous moment.
Yeah.
I learned it's okay to say I don't know. Yeah, that's like that kind of taps into a greater philosophy that I have, especially again, like, you know, I've been fortunate to shoot you know, like some decent budget films, but most of my work has been just so small. And when you're working with a small budget, there's this inherent idea that you can't fail.
Right.
Because we only have so much money and we only have so much time. And there's this pressure of like, we need to go in with this $250,000 and execute a feature film in 10 days and it's got to be great. It's like failure. That's going to be a terrible movie. Of course it's going to be a terrible movie. But it's like if you shift the mentality and you go like, well, let's like utilize the democratization of technology to have fewer people doing more jobs, which means we need to be a little bit smarter about who we hire. You know, I always cause like, I need my Navy SEALs.
Right.
I need my dudes or dudettes, but I just need people who can be autonomous and can make great choices and can handle a lot. And I need time. And then you've got to be free to fail. And my favorite thing is well, not my favorite thing, but like, I just love the freedom of finishing a scene or a day's work. And I like watching dailies, and you watch it and you go like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Let's do it again tomorrow. And it's like, well, how do we do that? I'm like, let's figure it out. We can totally figure this out. Because I don't think we need all day tomorrow. So who's down to like come? Because it's like if you're going to complain to me about your 10-hour day or your 12-hour day and we're making a small passion project film, it's like, you need to go be like a cog in the union machine. Right. Like go and be a second assistant camera for DCAM, on the big movie. If what is most important to you is like my hours and everything, I'll never ask someone to like work 24 hours and then drive 5 hours home. It's like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about like the set's 20 minutes from our houses. It's like, can we come in an hour early tomorrow and set this up so that the first thing the actors do is we reshoot this scene? Like, are the actors okay with that? Like, they'd love another go. It's like, great. Well, now we know that the camera's better over here. Let's do it again. And then like, I'll pay for second meal. Let's go a little bit longer in the end of the day. We'll get like some sushi delivered or something cool. It's just like, but like figure it out. It's like okay to fail. And that's like, I saw Jim reshoot scenes 20 times on Avatar. And it's just, he's like, the sun was in the wrong place because he's moving everything, right? He's like,
Right.
So now with the sun here, that means that I need to be here. And I didn't like the way that person walked over. And then we would reshoot just like people within a scene where he's like, everyone's great except you. You suck. And you can do that with performance capture. So then we have this acting troupe act out what the first team did. So like what Zoe and all the big actors did. Now we have sort of stunt doubles walking where the other people did so that there's a point of reference. And then we just day play, Stephen Lang. He comes back for one day to get his performance, can be like, I just want to tweak just him. So I don't need everybody. And that's how Jim would really utilize this performance capture world that he had built. But it's like, to just like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's 90% there. It's 90% perfect. Let's redo that actor's performance. Let's redo this. And it's like, take some of that mentality to your smaller projects and like make it good, figure it out.
Yeah. I had something else, but then I got wrapped up in what you were saying, and then I forgot. But the follow-up question was going to be like, what are some of those things that you've brought from those larger set experiences to your smaller sets, and potentially vice versa? Because I feel like there's always something to learn from kind of both sides of that coin.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one recently was, again, the film in Romania was a larger budget film. And, there was an expectation for just like a larger crew. And I was like, we're not making that movie. Like the director and I wanted 40 shooting days at least. So let's sacrifice some things. And everyone was up in arms about not having a DIT, not having like a video playback like guy, like a dedicated guy. I'm like, that's a luxury, and we're not doing anything on this movie that like demands that. Like there's other technology. And we ended up just getting a transmitter that I put on, I think I put on the first AC's monitor that then created like a Wi-Fi output. Everyone has a phone, and we just did like unlimited number of streams. And so just like hair, makeup, wardrobe, like everyone's on their iPad or their phone, like watching what we're doing. And I'm like, great, solved. It's like, I don't need to spend an insane amount of money to bring this guy in a whole truck. And it's like, I don't want that. Yeah. I want 5 more days of shooting or whatever, like reallocate that money. So I like to shoot single cam, small crew, focused, fewer people working harder, fewer people, the most talented people I can get operating at a high level. That's the environment that I like to work in. And then, in the smaller projects, it's just being relaxed and being so gracious because we're all doing a lot. And if something doesn't work, it's like, great, that didn't work. That's fine. Like, let's do it again tomorrow. Like, we were shooting this movie in the Oregon coast in 2020. We shot all night long. And I think this is for the Lifetime Network. The crew was like maybe 8 people, 12 people. And the sun's coming up and it's a night scene. And then it's just like, well, let's try to rush to get. And it's just like, is everyone okay coming back and doing this tomorrow? We just leave everything where it is. And so it's like, if you can just make that okay. Yeah, we just put too much pressure on ourselves, I think, on these smaller films.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
That's actually, you reminded me what I forgot, was something that Messerschmitt, not to just keep bringing him up, but he's cool. But he mentioned that like, it's important, to your point, to get it the way that it's supposed to be, because no one watches the movie and went, well, at least they made their day. Not an audience member in the world is watching that and going like, oh, that sucked. But you know what? I know that they were on time. So at least they did that.
I love the expression when you're on set, if not now, then when?
Yeah.
When does this magic, when does someone come down and go like, you now have time to do it the way it's supposed to be? It's like, well, when's that? That's never going to happen.
Right.
You make it happen. You say this is important. And then you have hard conversations. And then it's like, and if you're working with a great director, the hard conversations up front where you go like, we're not going to cover this scene. We don't have time for that. And that's like very Finch, but like, where's the one spot we put the camera that gets it done? Like, how do you get quality on a small scale? And it's just like economy of motion.
Yeah.
I love the blocking, and I'm always talking about this shot, but in Jaws, the scene that takes place on the ferry, where
the big long oneer.
That's it.
Yep.
But the camera, I think, is maybe on 8 feet of track. And that's it. Like the camera doesn't move like, at all.
Right.
But the talent comes to the camera, and then the ferry turns like at least 180, if not 360. So that the background's moving. So that's interesting. And then what's the lead actor's name? Paul. Anyway, so then instead of pushing in for a close up, he just the blocking. Spielberg just blocks him closer to camera, and then the camera just pans with him to kind of like isolate him for a second. Then another character comes around and joins him, and then they kind of take a step away. And now it's a 2. So it's like that's what I'm talking about. Like if you take a little bit more time with your blocking, and now we can kind of do, your coverage in this interesting way, and then we're all kind of looking for that opportunity of like, how do we make the background move like Jaws? Like that's the secret sauce in that shot, right?
Mm.
So what's the element here that gives us that? I mean, those are the things. You ever listen to Deakins talk about location scouting for Fargo?
Potentially, but no, I don't not off the top of my head.
This jumped out at me. I'm like, that's it. And it's I can't remember the guy's the lead actor from Shameless, and the guy who hires them to kill his wife. His office has the freeway behind it, so that every time you're looking at him, it's just this chaos of traffic behind him.
Right.
And it's like it's interesting. It's just visually interesting. So from like a very sort of baser artistic standpoint, it's like it's cool. But then story wise, it's like this is a guy whose world is upside down, and he just like can't get a breath, and he's just making one bad choice after another. So then you start to like, okay, this is how it really starts to work. Like we're stacking these things. It all adds to the why. Why are we doing this? And then you have this, you can easily sort of explain like why you're doing it. And and it's just a simple shot, it's a lock off, but it's inherently dynamic.
Yeah, that 2 things that like Spielberg obviously is the master of blocking, and I've seen that he like he doesn't really he's shotless, but he doesn't like really draw anything out. It's like he'll get there on the day and then just like assemble and he'll just do oneers like crazy. And I think the one thing that kind of quickly was the check mark of like there he is was the end of the Fabelmans, the tilt shot. You know what I'm talking about? The very last shot where they readjust based on John Ford's advice and shit. And I was like, but that does speak to Spielberg's like mastery. Just that little joke is such a great thing. But what's funny is I went to New York Film Academy before going to college. And I guess like the class before me, Spielberg's kid was in it. And throughout the time there, they really hammered home like how important a master shot. And there was like entire lessons that were like, all right, you got to make a whole film on a master shot. And we were shooting 16 millimeters, so it was easy to just let it ride, but difficult because obviously you only have 7 minutes or 4 minutes or however long one of those reels was. Yeah. But we all show our movies, and the professor was like, all right, you want to know what Spielberg's kid did that was amazing that none of you did? We were like, what? And they were like, he had an intro. There was an intro to his short, not like a here's what it is, but like there was a ostensibly credit, like the first minute or whatever, set up the film, and then there was like title card and then the film.
Mm.
And I was like, that is fascinating, because I don't think I've ever seen a student film. How does every student film start? Fucking alarm clock, right? It's just every time. And they were just like, no, like set up the scene. If it's a short film, set up, like the first act is that opening thing, and then 2 and 3 are the film. And if you just put a title card in the middle, it feels like a very cohesive project. And I believe I have done that in almost everything in the past 20 years. It's like set the scene with that intro.
Yeah. 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 You're establishing tone. Yeah, that opening statement. So
same thing with like Following, like Chris Nolan's Following. That's how he did, the first scene was like really polished. So he tricks everyone into believing he's good at his job. And then the rest of it's handheld on rooftops because that's the budget, You
got to hook them, because that's everything. I remember that with writing too. It's like that first sentence. Sentence would be enough. Sorry, I have to keep reading. You got to hook them in. I love it. I Believe in America happens over Black. And then you come in, you're like, I'm listening. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. The what was it against? Oh, I did see two. I know we're coming up on time, so I'll let you go here soon. But did I read this correctly? That, because I think you and I again had a similar upbringing, that like it was the CKY Jackass era that really got you going.
Yeah, that kicked it all off. Yeah, dude, Corey Latham, and you should listen to this podcast, Corey. Yeah, my neighborhood friends were skaters, and I couldn't skate, so I was relegated to be, right. So I'm the camera guy, and then it was like, well, let's make movies, and so then that group, they wanted to make more skater movies, and so then my buddy Grayson and I started making Star Wars fan films and figuring out just everything there, and that was crazy. One of my favorite breakthroughs was when we learned chroma keying, like in early After Effects. And so we set up, Grayson painted a whole wall blue in his parents' garage, and so that was our screen. And but then I needed the background plate. We wanted to do like a speeder bike, so we took a bicycle down and we put the bicycle in front of it, and then put the camera sort of flat to the bicycle. And then you're like I think maybe took like a leaf blower to blow our hair, so it looked like this. But then I was like, so how can we get the motion blur for the plate? So we took the tripod out in the backyard of the forest, I think, and we got underneath it, and then we just spun the tripod as fast as we could.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So like a Scooby-Doo background that just is the same thing over and over again. But yeah, that's fun.
Tell me if you remember. Do you remember Alam DV?
Yeah,
because I remember making the same thing, making the Star Wars films, and finally, because I couldn't afford After Effects, or I didn't have it, or whatever, or like the tracking was bad, and being able to have Alam DV to make the lightsabers, you could just really easily track the lightsabers in Alam DV, and I used it, and now it's called. It still exists, but it's called something else now. I can't remember.
That is a blast from the past, Kenny. Like, you're blowing my mind. Yeah, I remember doing that for muzzle flashes, lightsabers, dust hits, like all that stuff. Yeah, I totally. Yep. Wow, I haven't thought about that in ages, but yes, I absolutely use that software.
It was funny because the only reason I remember that at all is because like a couple years ago, I had to interview the company that AlamDV became, and I was interviewing about this software, and I was just like, yeah, cool, whatever, like this, nice little beginner intro to After Effects, cool, right on. And then when I got off the call with them, I like just did a little extra research. I was like, oh fuck, I used this like when I was a kid. Why, damn it, like I could have given them way more props.
Yeah.
I was still up my own ass about it that I like
game changer technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were like, it was so, with no YouTube.
Right.
So cool to talk to, like, you remember what that's like. Where you're literally
Daily
like,
Motion.
it's just like you have to figure out everything. And it's like, well, I know that this camera connects to a computer, but we don't know how.
And I had a PC, so I didn't have FireWire.
They had okay, because I remember that. It was like, what is 1394A? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then we were trying to figure out what that cable was, but I had a PC and I was able to connect it for some reason. Maybe we had
You could get a card. You could get like but if you had like a Gateway or a Dell or whatever, it just didn't have any PCIe slots, so you couldn't go. So I ended up I built a gaming PC because I was playing Counter-Strike at the time, good old 1.5, 1.6, and I had at that point PCIe slots. But I used to have to go to my buddy's house who had a Mac and dump all the tapes.
Yeah, I forgot if it was like if Grayson got a Micron, and then eventually we got a compact Presario.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
And I feel like it had one on the back. But yeah, you're definitely right though, because it was like, wow, yeah, we just don't have what it needs to plug in. But yeah, man.
Well, that's when you had to edit in camera too.
Yep.
Before you could figure that out, it was just run it. And you'd always catch the beginning of the word action. You know, and then the scene would start.
And then also remember, like, if you, we were shooting on VHS, there would be those like few interlaced frames of takes that like the previous takes.
Oh, that you taped over?
Yeah. Because you would just try to rewind because you're editing. So there'd be like a little, and then the take would start.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. This actually brings up something that I hope younger filmmakers are listening to this one, because this is all old men screaming at clouds, but I think it's important. I like everyone, to your earlier point about everyone like freaking out about lenses and stuff.
Yeah. Like
cameras specifically, I'm like, the fact that you have 24p and you're shooting to SD cards is enough. Like that. One of the biggest things was when I had the Sony Handycam that was high 8, and it had a feature where you could rewind to the previous take.
Mm.
And that was enormous because it avoided that weird 3-frame problem that you had trying to figure out the exact frame to stop on the tape deck.
I remember that. It would go past it, and then it would go frame by frame, and you would watch it stop at that. Yes.
And it's like, you don't have to deal with that anymore. You know, some of these cameras, you can wirelessly send the clip to your phone.
Yeah.
Like I hate to be the guy who's like, you have it so easy now, but it's like again, to your initial point, like it frees you up to be creative. Like the gear used to be in the way all the time, and now it's not. But unfortunately, new gear is fun.
Yeah.
New things are exciting. New tech is exciting. I love it. I'm a nerd, but it definitely makes it harder, I think, for younger people to get out of their own way and be creative versus thinking like, oh, you know, because I think every artist has the issue of what Stephen Pressfield calls it's a book called The War of Art, and he calls it this thing resistance.
Yep.
And it's a nefarious force that basically says you can't start until, you know, so people go, I'm a filmmaker, but I can't start until I get this camera or until I go to film school or whatever. And you're the only one in here in your brain. You're telling you can't start. There's no force telling you can't start or telling you that you're not good enough or whatever. It's like failure is good. And to put everything on yourself, you know, so many people try to have their first feature film or short film be some masterpiece that is going to get a bunch of awards and stuff. And it's like better to just make it within your means and have it be a piece of shit or maybe like a decent film that people are like, oh, that was pretty good, than to put all that on yourself and die of a coronary early.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm guilty of it. Me
too.
Yeah. And I started doing this, motorcycle vlog. I think principally because I'm trying to just force myself to not care.
Mm.
You know, as I'm like, well, you're the cinematographer. Of course, your vlog is going to look awesome. I was just watching dailies this morning and like, oh, it's terrible. But the whole point of the exercise was like to just do it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, the next time I go out, I'll put the camera on a chest mount instead of the helmet mount. You know, it's just like, I don't like the way that looks. Great. I'll change it next time.
Well, and even stuff like vlogs, like that Osmo Pocket 3.
It's amazing.
crazy.
Amazing.
So good. Like, use that, to make your, let alone a vlog, make your movie on that. Like, great stabilization, dynamic range is pretty decent, it's real small. You can mount it to anything.
Yep. Yeah. No, I love it. I really love it.
Yeah. Wrapping up though, speaking of gear, you shot Good Bad Things on an R5C, Sigma, Primes, L series zoom, which I've always been afraid of the L series. I don't know why.
RF, the RF. Is it still L series? It's the new RF.
L just means they're nice range.
Yep.
But yeah, the RF ones. And I was wondering, what were some of those things that you did to ensure, I know you said like taking extra time, but to ensure that using that prosumer gear, which again looks incredible no matter what, but to make it look its best. I know your lighting kit was also pretty sparse.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can watch blocking, if there's a blocking. And then Shane was really open to me suggesting like where to kind of block to. And then I only had a couple lights. So it's like, single source approach. It's just like, okay, I'm going to have like, there's going to be a singular direction of light. So the camera should be here to sort of like see that the best way, which means let's kind of block it on that side of the house. And then, it's just like little moments where could you kind of open up to camera a little bit, because this will be a lock off. And then if you start kind of watching the rehearsal, you go like, probably not a good idea to ask that actor in that emotional state to technically perform for me. And that's when I go like, that's when I need to move the camera. So just kind of being aware, because the most important thing, because this is, Good Bad Things is not like an action movie. No, it's not a set piece movie. So our biggest asset is authentic performance. So there were totally times when it's like, hey, could you do this for me? And can you cheat that? And blah, blah, blah. But as much as possible, it's like, how could I stay out of their way? So that it could just be real. And if you get a chance to see the film, I mean, like Danny's relationship with Brett Dyer, who plays his best friend in the film, I mean, like that was just real. Those guys are still best friends to this day. And so it's just allowing the authenticity to occur as much as possible, staying out of the way, trying not to be, what's his name? Light metering in front of Christian Bale.
Oh, dude, I was literally just about to say, you don't want to be that guy. And I know who that guy is, and I'm not going to name him just so people don't.
Right. I do too. Yeah.
He's,
it's always funny because when I found out who it was, I was like, oh yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, I know. And here's the thing. I really liked that Terminator.
Yeah, it's cool.
Did a great job on it.
Yeah.
Looks great.
It looks
Bale's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, a little emotional EQ on his part, or IQ, whatever. Would have gone a long way and probably
right.
Kept his career going a little longer than he has since pivoted to.
Right. Yeah. So don't be that guy. And and just like create a safe space. And that's why the small camera is awesome, and not having a lot of lights is awesome.
You find yourself turning off more lights then?
Well, I love Canon cameras. Canon cameras love light.
Yeah.
I think Sony cameras look pretty good with like a light bulb, but honestly, like I try to, most of my night work I actually shot at 400 ISO.
I do the same trick with my C500.
Yeah.
Because then it cleans up those blacks immediately.
Yeah. And there was times, because it has like a little, it recalibrates the sensor at 3200. You can change the base to 3200. And there were moments for sure.
On the R5C.
The R5C, where for some reason I think I had to shoot at like a 2.8, maybe probably because of the lens, and I wanted that focal length. And so it's like, okay. Because I think my primes at a 1.4 were like 35, the 50. And I just never really used the 85 or the 105 that much. It's mostly the 35 and the 50. So then it's like, well, I want to shoot in the zoom, so I have to be at a 2.8. I'm like, 3200, and it looks. But yeah, if I can, I was pushing light in. So no, I was still using like the 600X at night, and turning all the house lights on and putting every stereo tube that I had in the back, like, and really just like cranking it. And yeah, because I knew that's like, if it looks too bright now, fine. I'd rather have too bright now because I'm shooting 12-bit RAW. It's like, I'll bring this sucker down. Like, it'll look real nice, in the grade.
Yeah.
I like
As long as the ratios are good, it can be a nuke in there. I mean, that's the way that we used to shoot on film, right? When you had fucking 100 speed film, like, it looked ridiculous.
I those good ratios. And I was like, man, everything is just so like. Did you see the new Gladiator? Which is like
the
John
trailer?
Matheson.
I saw the trailer, yeah.
The trailer where people were coming after John Matheson were like, why is it so soft? Like, there's no contrast anymore. Did you see this like argument?
Yeah, he's outdoors.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like, I kind of agree though, a little bit, but I feel that's a film thing though. Like, I think that we did have stronger ratios on film because
sure.
You had lights. Like, well, I have to have like light, but with digital, it's kind of just like you turn the camera on, you're like, it looks pretty good. And you're like, yeah, it's an Alexa. It looks great if you do nothing.
Yeah.
Like, but you should do like, back your ISO off. And yeah, no, I like shooting at 400.
Do you find that, I agree with you. Do you find that, I'm just thinking about that thought of like, you turn on the camera and it looks good. And I could go on a whole rant again for like students, because half my job is education anyway. But older filmmakers tend to they had to work so hard to make it look good, and then now they can just turn on that camera and it's 80%, and they're just like, you know what, I'm gonna save the time. I don't need to go that extra 10, because I just don't know about the like environment that they're in all the time. Like, the feedback they're getting is like, are the people who are in charge of it oftentimes like, yeah, that 80% is perfect. We don't need to spend the extra time or money to get the extra 20%.
I mean, I legit just heard Ellsworth kind of say this about Ripley, where his process was like, he's trying to figure out how to light this sequence outside of Rome with these soft boxes. Like, but I don't want it to look lit. And so the tops of the trees are glowing because they're near the crane.
Right.
And so he's doing the DI and he's bringing that down to like hide it. And Zalian's like, he's like, no, I love it. Like it look. And it's just like, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, in Garrett's whole thing too, when you shoot for Garrett wants a strong image, that he wants bold lighting, but also he wants to do 100 setups a day.
Right.
So there's always that balance of like, well, what's more important to you? And I don't know if he has an answer. It's like he wants everything, and it's like, okay, let's go for it. Let's do it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then there was also the thing with the old guys too, where we gave them the digital camera that was more sensitive, and they were still lighting the old way. And then that also looked really bad.
Dude, I was rewatching Stargate Atlantis recently. And so if you watch Stargate SG-1, first 3 seasons were 16 mil, then they go to 35. So there's not a insignificant, but like a decent quality bump there. And then season 8, they go to digital. I think it was the F900s. And then Stargate Atlantis started on those. Or maybe it was the Genesis. Might have been the Panavision Genesis. But those first like 2-3 seasons of Atlantis look terrible. Same thing with the last seasons of SG-1, because they were still lighting for film and everything was clipped. And then by the time they get to like, I think Atlantis went for 5 seasons. By the time they get to like 4, they finally realize like, ooh, we got to bring these ratios way down to like make it so that the sensor can handle what we're doing. Because before, and then every time they go outside, it's like, if one person's in the shadow and one person's in the sun, they're white, they're just gone. Yeah. And it's been a fascinating thing to go back to, because that's only like what, 2005? Like, it's not that long ago where it was such a pain in the ass to shoot on digital.
Yeah. 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 You just said be really yeah. I mean, even the Red One, like super, first of all, I was lighting it to 160.
Yeah, everyone was. Yeah. You could only use daylight balance. Try tungsten and everything got mushy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited I really, really like shooting on the Alexa 35.
Yeah, you can't blow that out.
No, no, you can really kind of get wacky with it, and it just sort of hangs in there, which is fun because again, like then I'm lighting really emotionally and expressionistically. I'm just like it's just nah, nah. And then you're like, oh, it looks great. It's like, well, it's gonna look great no matter what. It's just like forget about that, and then just like, how can you make this just like visceral, this visceral experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, that C400, that triple base ISO, I saw someone run a test against an FX6 and way cleaner at the high ISOs compared to the Sony. So I'm interested to see when that finally hits the market, like if anyone's able to do anything interesting with that. But again, I'm kind of on your side where it's like I actually want to rate the thing lower because the higher you go, unless you're shooting at night or whatever, but like it's easier to get lazy. But it's also easier to use cheaper fixtures, which is a thing that I don't want to like minimize. Like if you have the budget to rent that C400, but can only afford like certain number of lights and you need a bunch of them, shooting at higher ISOs, obviously, if they're really clean, allow you to use those less powerful fixtures.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think it's always this balance. Like if you can, you should. But then I always think about like what's the sort of emotional common denominator of the scene. And like with early drones that, the quality was poor. And I'm like, yeah, but it's a camera in the sky.
Yeah.
And that people are like, they're wowed by the perspective first and foremost. And you're not going to live in it long enough for them to go, that's actually pretty noisy.
Is that a GoPro 4?
Nobody cares. It's like, it's in the sky and that's the thing. And, yeah, I mean, that's like, but yeah, the C400, I might shoot, Shane's next movie on that. I've been talking to Canon about it. They like what we did with the R5C. And I was like, well, what? Tell me more about this C400. And I'll be really excited because there's some huge sequences that happen at night. And yeah, and I would like to go sort of like full Oren Sofer, the creator. And it's just like, how much of a space can you light with a couple aperture lights? Because again, then it's like, what's the common denominator? It's just this like scale. If I can light up the desert at night with a couple of things, and it's just like, that's all people really care about. They're sort of like wowed by this perspective.
Yeah.
They might forgive, like a few little things. But yeah, I'm excited to play with that camera and see what it can do.
As far as I'm aware right now, there's only 6.
Yeah, there was one here. It was over. Do you know Matthew Todd Irving?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to him about it. Like it was here. I'm like, I was so close to getting to play with it.
I got to interview Oren a while ago, and the two things that I took away from it, because I don't know if you're on Reddit, but boy, that really fucked up the cinematography subreddit discourse, because now everyone and the entire internet is just like, oh, the only camera you need is an FX3, and then you're going to be the best filmmaker in the world. But the two things that he mentioned that I was like, all right, I could do that. It's like, one, obviously they used a sick lens, like, that really awesome anamorphic. They only had like one of, and they shot the whole thing on that one lens for the most part. But one thing, because I was like, how do you make the Sony image straight out of camera isn't necessarily the most flattering. Like that's why everyone likes Canon, because it's, very pretty. But Canon can be a little almost too pretty. Like if I'm shooting a beauty commercial, I'm gonna shoot it on Canon. If I'm shooting a sci-fi, maybe a Sony thing. But he was like, and I use this trick now for everything almost compulsively, and it's great, is in Resolve or whatever they used, they basically squeezed the entire image into two. Well, okay, this is what I do based on what he said. I'm not saying this is what he did, but basically you take the color warper and squeeze it to basically skin and cyan or whatever, just complementary, and then dial it back so that it's not obviously a duotone image. But if you put it to like 30%, it just moves all the colors. Because you know how film only has like, it's like, if I were to get, man, I'm really blown out. If on digital, you can see like it's like a little patch of red here and a little orange, and skin can look kind of, but on film, it squeezes all the colors together. He was saying that was one thing that made the creator look that way, was squeezing all of the vectors into similar colors became one and kind of evened everything out. And now I put that on fucking everything, and it's a great little trick.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Yeah. That's the sort of homogenization of color palette.
Yeah. But not too much, just enough that like everything still looks the color it's supposed to be, but
Yeah, because that's totally
It's
that
so
stony
wild.
look where you can sort of see where the makeup's starting to fail in a couple spots in her skin, and you're like, oh, it's just
Dude,
that's very, very cool.
that again, I'll send you the you have Resolve, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll send you the power grade. But that I remember the first digital Alien, what was it, Covenant?
Mm-hmm.
Or Prometheus, one of them.
Yeah, one of those. Maybe
I could-
Prometheus. Yeah.
Yeah, I could just there's like a close up of Numi Rapace or whoever it was,
Right.
or maybe it was it Scarlett Johansson, Charlize Theron, whoever it was,
Oh, yeah, she was also on that. Yeah. Yep.
and you can see the makeup, and I was like, oh damn, this is a crew that is shooting on digital for the first time, and
That's what's his name?
Ridley Scott.
Yeah, but the DP,
Oh,
he's so good. He'd been doing some digital work, but it's like when
but the makeup department potentially wasn't.
yeah,
You know, they were used to the forgiveness.
yeah, yeah.
Not to blame them or anything. I'm not trying to talk shit, but I could
it's
just
just
see it.
that-
You know.
Yep. It's such a tricky thing, and you think it's like I used diffusion filters forever, and I stopped using diffusion filters when I figured out more about like what Warren's talking about, like how to do it with the grade, and yeah, because like it's too much. I want like a 1/16th diffusion, and it's just like let's just do it kind of in the grade.
Well, I'll give you the final tip that I still use, and that is from Messerschmitt once again. He said on the Killer they used Scatter, the plugin, because I tested it against the filters I have. It's fucking dead on.
Yeah.
So and you can just you set you can set if you want it to be accurate, you can set the focal length that you used, the strength. You just pick what filter you want on the drop down, and then obviously the nice thing because you're doing it in post, you can mask out areas that you don't want it to be on.
That's it.
And all that kind of thing. But it's a digital tool. You don't have to use the exact focal length that you actually use. Dial it around, fuck with it. It just make it look the way you want, But yeah, I'm the same way. I stopped using diffusion like 2 years ago. Unless it's on like a cheaper camera, then maybe like a contrast filter sometimes is helpful to just bring up the shadows a little bit so the sensor can handle it. But yeah. I was so against like the fix it and post mentality until I started doing it myself, and I was like, oh, you can really save some time. As long as I'm doing it, I would never force anyone else to do it. But if I'm doing it, it's a good brain to have.
You know what the expectation is. Yeah, save some time, and then also just kind of like explore new creative depths.
Yeah.
Creative depths. Yeah, there's a lot more we can do now.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I got to let you go because I got another interview coming up. But, oh, fuck, I wanted to talk about being an ASC Vision mentee. Whatever. We'll have you back on at some point. And
that would be cool. I would love that.
Yeah. And we'll keep chatting. And definitely if you're ever in LA, like give me a shout and we'll grab beers on.
Yeah, I drive back tomorrow.
Oh, fuck. All right. Well,
the end of my, I'll come, I'll pop over. Let's go have a drink in Santa Monica.
Perfect, brother. We'll see you soon.
Awesome, Kenny. Nice to meet you. And this is great.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Later.
Yeah.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so on Patreon by going to frameandrefpod.com, where you can get all the episodes, and clicking the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.